In the scorching sands of Egypt's Valley of the Kings, beneath layers of ancient stone and forgotten time, lay a secret that had slumbered for over 3 millennia. A tomb sealed not merely by mortar and granite, but by something far more sinister, a curse so potent that it would claim the lives of those who dared disturb its eternal silence. The date, November 4th, 1922. The place, a desolate stretch of the Theban necropolis where pharaohs once dreamed of immortality. Here, a British archaeologist named Howard Carter stood before a doorway that would change his life forever and begin a chain of deaths that would terrorize the world. Carter had spent years searching these barren valleys, funded by his patron, George Herbert, the 5th Earl of Carnarvon. Together, they had endured disappointment after disappointment, empty tomb after empty tomb, their fortune dwindling like water in the desert sun. This was to be their final season, their last desperate gamble before abandoning their quest forever. But on that fateful November morning, Carter's workmen uncovered something extraordinary: 16 stone steps descending into the earth, leading to a doorway bearing the ancient seals of the royal necropolis. Upon that doorway, pressed into clay 3,000 years before, were hieroglyphs that would soon become infamous throughout the world. The cartouche of Tutankhamun, the boy pharaoh who had ruled Egypt in its golden age. As Carter peered through a hole in the ancient door, holding a flickering candle to pierce the darkness beyond, he beheld wonders that defied imagination. Golden treasures gleamed in the candlelight, statues of forgotten gods stood sentinel in the shadows, and everywhere lay the magnificent burial goods of a king who had died when Alexander the Great was still centuries unborn. "Can you see anything?" Lord Carnarvon called from behind, his voice echoing in the narrow passage. Carter's reply would echo through history: "Yes, wonderful things." Yet hidden among those wonderful things was something else, something that ancient Egyptian priests had placed there with terrible purpose. For they believed that those who violated the eternal rest of the pharaoh would face the wrath of the gods themselves. They had inscribed warnings upon the tomb's entrance, prophecies of doom for any who would plunder the sacred burial chamber. The excavation proceeded with meticulous care. Day by day, Carter and his team cataloged treasures beyond imagination. Golden thrones, jeweled daggers, ceremonial chariots, and artifacts of such beauty that they seemed touched by divine hands. But even as they marveled at these wonders, the curse began its deadly work. Lord Carnarvon himself was the first to fall. In April 1923, barely 5 months after the tomb's opening, he died of blood poisoning, having contracted a deadly infection from what appeared to be nothing more than a mosquito bite. The timing was ominous. He perished within weeks of the tomb's official unveiling to the world. But Carnarvon's death was merely the beginning. As news of the curse spread through newspapers across the globe, more deaths followed with terrifying regularity. Each victim shared one common thread: they had entered the tomb of Tutankhamun. Arthur Mace, a distinguished American archaeologist and member of Carter's team, had helped excavate the tomb's antechamber. In 1928, Mace died of arsenic poisoning, his death as mysterious as it was sudden. How had a careful scholar, working in the sterile environment of an archaeological dig, come to ingest such a deadly substance? Richard Bethel served as Carter's personal secretary, a trusted aide who handled the expedition's correspondence and documentation. On November 15, 1929, Bethel was found dead in his bed at an exclusive Mayfair club in London, the victim of apparent smothering. He was but 45 years of age, in the prime of his life, with no known enemies or reasons for such a violent end. The curse seemed to reach beyond its immediate victims, striking even their loved ones. Lord Westbury, father of the murdered Richard Bethel, fell 7 floors to his death in 1930, plummeting from the very room where he kept artifacts his son had given him from Tutankhamun's tomb. Before his death, he had reportedly told friends that he feared the curse would claim him too. George J. Gould, a wealthy American visitor who had toured the tomb, succumbed to pneumonia shortly after his visit. Hugh Evelyn White, a British archaeologist who had worked at the site, became so convinced of the curse's reality that he took his own life, leaving behind a note that spoke of the pharaoh's vengeance pursuing him. Aaron Ember, a professor working on translations of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the very text that described the afterlife's perils, perished in a house fire. As flames consumed his home, witnesses reported that he had tried desperately to save his precious manuscripts about ancient Egyptian burial practices, as if the knowledge itself had become cursed. The deaths mounted with each passing year. Journalists who had covered the tomb's discovery began dying under strange circumstances. Radiologists who had X-rayed the mummy suffered mysterious ailments. Even relatives of the excavation team found themselves marked by misfortune and early death. By the late 1920s, the pattern had become undeniable to those who believed. More than a dozen deaths were attributed to the curse, each more mysterious than the last. The victims died of varied ailments: poisoning, suffocation, falls, fires, and diseases. Yet all shared the common thread of having entered or been connected to the boy king's tomb. The press seized upon these deaths with ravenous hunger. Newspapers across the world proclaimed the reality of the pharaoh's curse, spinning tales of ancient Egyptian magic reaching across millennia to claim its victims. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, publicly endorsed the supernatural explanation, lending his considerable reputation to the belief in the curse's power. But what of Howard Carter himself, the man who had first breached the tomb's sacred seal? Surely, if anyone deserved the pharaoh's wrath, it would be the archaeologist who had violated the royal burial chamber. Yet Carter continued his work, year after year, cataloging artifacts and studying the tomb's contents with methodical precision. The curse, it seemed, showed peculiar preferences in its victims. Carter lived and worked for 17 years after opening the tomb, dying in 1939 of lymphoma at the age of 64. A respectable lifespan for a man of his era. His longevity became a puzzle for both believers and skeptics alike. Some whispered that Carter had discovered protective amulets within the tomb, ancient talismans that shielded him from the pharaoh's vengeance. Others suggested that his reverence for Egyptian culture and careful treatment of the artifacts had earned him the dead king's mercy. Still others pointed to his humble origins, arguing that the curse targeted only the wealthy and titled, sparing the working-class archaeologist who had devoted his life to uncovering Egypt's secrets. Yet the deaths continued to accumulate. Each new victim added weight to the legend. Each mysterious demise strengthened the belief that ancient powers had awakened in the Valley of the Kings. The curse became a phenomenon that transcended archaeology, capturing the imagination of a world still reeling from the Great War and hungry for mystery in an age of increasing mechanization. As the decades passed, researchers began to examine the curse with scientific rigor. They discovered that many alleged victims had never actually entered the tomb. Others had died of ailments common to their age and social class. The pattern of deaths, when subjected to statistical analysis, appeared no more unusual than random chance would predict. But believers in the curse were not deterred by such mundane explanations. They pointed to the specific nature of many deaths, the arsenic poisoning, the mysterious smothering, the perfectly timed accidents. Could mere coincidence account for such a precise pattern of misfortune? Modern science has offered alternative explanations for the deaths surrounding Tutankhamun's tomb. Some researchers have suggested that ancient fungal spores, sealed within the tomb for millennia, may have caused respiratory ailments in those who breathed the chamber's stale air. Others have pointed to radioactive materials used in ancient Egyptian burial practices, or toxic substances employed in mummification processes. The tomb itself revealed no explicit curse inscriptions, unlike some other pharaonic burials. Yet absence of written curses did not diminish the power of the legend. If anything, it enhanced the mystery, suggesting that the pharaoh's protection required no words, no threats, no warnings. His power transcended mere hieroglyphic warnings. Consider the profound irony of Tutankhamun's revenge. In life, he had been a minor pharaoh, a boy king who ruled for barely 9 years before his untimely death at 18. His reign had been overshadowed by greater rulers, his name nearly forgotten by history. Yet in death, through the alleged curse, he achieved an immortality that had eluded him in life. The psychological impact of the curse extended far beyond its supposed victims. Workers at archaeological sites throughout Egypt began refusing assignments, fearing that they too might fall prey to ancient vengeance. Insurance companies started writing policies to cover supernatural risks. The curse had become a cultural force, shaping behavior and belief in ways that its ancient creators could never have imagined. Even today, nearly a century after Carter's discovery, the curse of Tutankhamun continues to fascinate and terrify. New books appear regularly, documenting additional deaths and coincidences that feed the legend. Television documentaries explore the mystery from every conceivable angle, while tour guides in Egypt regale visitors with tales of the pharaoh's supernatural revenge. The tomb's discovery transformed our understanding of ancient Egypt, revealing artistic treasures and historical insights of immeasurable value. Yet for many, these academic achievements pale beside the darker legacy. The suggestion that some secrets are too dangerous to uncover, some mysteries too perilous to solve. Whether one believes in supernatural curses or seeks rational explanations, the story of Tutankhamun's tomb represents something profound about human nature. It speaks to our deep-seated fear that the dead do not rest peacefully, that violations of sacred spaces carry consequences beyond mortal understanding, and that ancient powers might still hold sway in our modern world. The Boy King, dead for over 3 millennia, achieved through his alleged curse what no pharaoh before him had accomplished: true immortality in human memory. Not through great conquests or magnificent monuments, but through the whispered fear that his spirit still guards his golden treasures, waiting patiently in the darkness for the next intruder to dare disturb his eternal slumber. Those 16 stone steps that Carter descended in 1922 led not merely to archaeological treasure, but to one of history's most enduring mysteries. Whether the deaths that followed were supernatural vengeance or tragic coincidence, they transformed a forgotten pharaoh into legend and reminded the world that some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed again. The curse of Tutankhamun stands as testament to the power of the unknown, the allure of the forbidden, and the eternal human fear that some secrets carry prices too terrible to pay. In seeking to understand the past, Carter and his team may have awakened something that was meant to remain buried forever in Egypt's shifting sands.